Hi. Transformation items. One of the core staples of the Henshin hero genre. Without it, we wouldn't get some of your favorite shows like Ultraman, Sentai, and Kamen Rider, and we wouldn't have Bandai holding a monopoly on the industry and raking you over the coals because they know you'll buy them because of the sheep we are. Transformation items have taken a variety of forms over the years, from Sentai turning common items like wristwatches and cell phones into powerful tools to defend the world, to Ultraman's strange and bizarre alien technology, to whatever the fuck Precure has.
Is that a fucking teddy bear? What the fuck?
But there's one series that always sticks to its guns and keeps things the same since 1971, except you, Amazon, and that's Kamen Rider. But one has to ask when looking at them, where are they hiding their belts? We constantly see them pull the belts out from behind their backs, but I always stare at the asses of this man every episode, and I don't see that driver lump in that rump, and I don't want to believe that they keep it in that rump. So today, I'm going to unwrap where each Kamen Rider keeps their belt. The fuck is this text doing here? Now before we get started, here are a few things I should mention. Firstly, yes, you could use the excuse that Kamen Rider is just a TV show, and all of these characters somehow have access to hammerspace, or the phenomena in which characters in comics, cartoons, and video games can seem to pull something out of nowhere. You know what? Sure. But I like to hold my television shows marketed towards 4 to 12-year-old boys to realism, damn it. So I'm going in deep. Secondly, you could say that maybe I don't see the distinct outline of the driver in the back pocket because they simply took it out. And while that would make sense when they're at home base or any typically recurring location considered safe, it doesn't make sense when they're just standing there in the local community quarry. And lastly, you might be thinking to yourself, Brevin, aren't you just stealing the format of Polygon's Unraveled series? And to that I say, yes, I am. And I highly encourage you to check out those videos, which were made by the fantastic Brian David Gilbert and the team at Polygon. And Brian, if you're somehow watching this and you're angry that I'm using your format, just know that you haven't touched the series in over 3 years, so I'm claiming squatters' rights. Now with that out of the way, we need to go over how we're going to be categorizing these. And what better way than a good old tier list. So this... Am I pointing in the right area? Please God, I hope I'm pointing in the right area. Am I, please. So this is the tier list I'll be using to help sort all these out. From top to bottom we have easily stored, a bit of discomfort, breaking in the pocket, actually just summoned, fucking how, tight fit, and finally, a bad night at Denny's. All of these are in order of how easily the rider is able to hold on to their drivers, from easily fitting in the pocket to needing the elasticity of Plastic Man. And just so we're clear, we're just going to be going over the main riders. But if you guys want to see me do the other drivers, tell me in the comments. I'll definitely do it. Jesus, that's over 100 riders. Anyways, so firstly, let's just get all the riders that summon their belts out of the way, starting with most of the Showa riders. We've got Ichigo, Nigo, V3, X, Amazon, Stronger, Skyrider, Super 1, Zekros, Black, and Black RX. Now, Riderman is a weird situation where he doesn't really use a belt, but instead a helmet. But the way he summons it is that it appears via 1970s editing, so therefore he does fit into the summon tier. Shin is where we get into our first discrepancy. He doesn't really have a belt or any transformation item. He just mutates. So he doesn't really fit into any of our pre-existing categories. Fuck it, new category, Shin. Zeto and J don't really have belts either, they just transform. So, Shin category. And now we enter the Heisei era, which is where we get to the confusion. Once again, let's go over all the people who obviously summon their belts. Kuga and Agito. Now, you might be saying, Brevin, there are more Heisei riders that summon their belts. And to that, I say, I know, back off, I'm getting to it, keep your pants on. Oh, speaking of which, Ryuki. Ryuki summons his belt, so he goes in the summon tier, using a card deck, which he just keeps in the back pocket, like a modern person with their smartphone. Logic would say that would break, but I guess not. So that goes in top tier. Very nice. Fives. He stores his belt and all of his gear in a briefcase. Easy storage? Yes. Convenient storage? No. Top tier. Blade is when we get into needing to use the real belts as a reference. Now, I don't own a blade buckle, especially not a CSM one, but looking at photos of them compared to other items, That is one chunky boy. That could still possibly fit in the back pocket. Possibly a jacket pocket based off some of the clothes Kanzaki wears at certain points in the show. But that's not going to be comfortable. Hibiki doesn't use a belt. He uses a tuning fork that he smacks against something or sometimes just flicks. We see him keep it on a belt clip, which makes it an easy top tier. Kabuto. Oh god, Kabuto. Okay, so, in episode 1 of Kabuto, Kagami is given the Zect belt, or whatever it's called, as he is the one who Zect plans on becoming Kabuto. But then Tendo shows up, the Kabuto Zector goes to him, and he already has a Zect belt. How? Exactly. I mean, I know future Tendo ends up giving child Tendo the belt in Godspeed Love. I know how he got it, but I'm like, where does it come from? In other episodes of Kabuto, we'll see Tendo, he doesn't have the belt on, and then the Zector appears in his hand, and all of a sudden, he just has the belt on. And as far as I know, we never see him summon it. It's just there.
Hi there. This is Brevin coming to you live from the editing bay. So here's the thing. At the time that I wrote this script, which was a while ago, I had never seen Kabuto. In fact, I still haven't. But I did go through a couple of episodes just to prove my theory, but I only did so in the editing bay. Yeah, every time he's about to transform, I see the belt on him. So that kind of renders this entire argument null and void. That being said, I'm going to keep it in because it's funny.
Where does it come from? Does it just appear on him when the Zector is summoned? Does he put it on in a fraction of a second he's off screen? And where does he keep it? Is it shoved in his jacket? Because he's not all wearing a jacket, though. That's the thing, he's not always wearing a jacket. Does he keep it in his ass? I refuse to believe it's that cavernous. This is going in the fucking how tier. Den-O has the same issue, but less so. In the first episode of Den-O, we physically see with our eyeballs that the belt appears on his waist, floating there, waiting for him to click it in. Fine. It goes in the summon category, right? Wrong. Because as far as I know, and I do, every appearance of the belt since has Ryotaro or one of the Taros pulling out the belt and swinging it around their waist. Where is this kept? I have no clue. Maybe it's stored in the same dimension that the belt was summoned from the first episode, which would be an acceptable answer. But then, why not just summon it around his waist again? That would make it way faster and more efficient, and give less of a chance for the enemy to steal the Den-O belt. I think this is our first case of actually being stored in the Tukas, so it goes in tight fit. I mean, Ryotaro looks like a bottom. Kiva! This one goes in the easily stored category because, I mean, duh. Kiva bites his hand, the chains form a belt around his waist, it's obviously going up there. His belt is the living creature. Decade. This is where we're going to start seeing more different placements. Looking at the Deca driver, it's not that big, but it's still got some heft to it. I feel like if you kept this in your back pocket for some time, it would be somewhat uncomfortable. Double. Now this is a driver I actually own, so I can use the actual toy as a baseline. This thing's actually pretty slim, and I definitely feel it could easily fit into the back pocket, if it didn't poke you in the butt a bit. It's a little bit of discomfort. This is also where we get into the overabundance of gimmicks. Now, to keep things fair, I'm only going to be covering the number of gimmicks that they have in the initial 5 or so episodes, trying to keep them before the first major power-up. Now, in the first episode of Double, we very clearly see where he keeps the Gaia memories stored. He has special slots for them stitched into his vest, which is some top-tier storage. O's. Top-tier storage. With Eiji's clothes, you can't tell what's under that shirt most of the time. And it's so loose that it makes sense that the O's driver wouldn't be easily noticeable. Plus, with how slim the thing is, it can easily fit in the back pocket. Top tier, baby. Same with the medals. It's just some coins that can easily fit in the pocket. Though, most of the time, Eiji isn't the one holding them. Ankh is, using an entire other person to hold onto your stuff. Genius. Forze. You cannot look at this thing and say that you can fit it in your back pocket. And if it was stored in the ass, that thing is gonna be painful coming out. Ladies and gentlemen, and everything else, I think we've got our first case of a bad night at Denny's. Congratulations, Forze. I'm sorry for your anus. Astro Switch is going top tier though. Those things are like tiny. Wizard. It's magic. I don't have to explain shit. Gun. The Sengoku driver is pretty flat, so I feel like that'd be able to slide easily into the back pocket. However, you do have to take into account the knife on it. Facing it inwards, that would dig into the back. Facing it outwards, that runs the risk of breaking. Either way, it's going to most likely break in the back pocket. Although, we do always see the lock seed hanging on a belt clip on Kota's waist. So, top tier storage. It's ingenious. Drive. Drive's belt, named the Drive Driver, has the entire strap out which he swings around his waist, similar to Den-O and Fai's. But, like Fai's, we always see where the belt is stored, so it goes in easily stored. Unlike Fai's though, instead of being in a briefcase, it's an entire fucking car. That's definitely not efficient, but it is badass as hell, so that is still going in top tier. And the shift cars can drive themselves around, so there's no real need to store them in his pockets. But if he needed to, he's got that holster on his waist. Ghost. We see very clearly in the second episode that the driver is just summoned on his waist. So that goes into the summon tier. And the icons are just balls. This one I'll leave to your discretion because we see where the Ori icon comes from, but for the other ones, we never really see where they're kept. Now, I'm not saying anything, but... Now, the thing is, with Ghost, Takaru gets both a summoned belt and a belt that he has to equip for Grateful form. The icon driver looks about as big as the blade buckle, based on appearances, so you could say it'd be uncomfortable. Nothing more to say, I just want to move away from Ghost as quickly as possible. X-Aid. The gamer driver is another belt I own, and I gotta say, this thing is fucking chunky, and it's all plastic. But the main thing is that it's thicker than it is wider, which means this is going to be very difficult. Now, you could, in theory, store it in the back pocket by sticking the lever in your pants and letting the rest of the belt dangle. But if you did that, you could not sit. And if Emu is storing it like that, then he really hides that lump of plastic well. But it's not stored like that. This is clearly another bad night at Denny's. But the gashats are flat enough to easily store in the pockets, so those go in top tier. Build is interesting in that we've seen how Sento stores his driver. We see in episode 16 when, spoilers, Banjo and Sento fight, Sento reaches inside of his coat pocket to pull out the driver. That's really smart and something I would expect from a genius like Sento, and so that would definitely go in the top tier if it weren't for the fact that he wasn't always wearing that jacket. So where does he keep it during then? Well, I own a build driver, and while it does seem like it could fit in the back pocket, possibly, it would most likely either crack the screen or break the handle. So that's going into broken. Full bottles can be stored in the pockets easily though, but those also might break the caps. Geo, or Zio, or G-O, the time travel one. That's also Decade. This is another belt I own, and I do think it could be stored in the back pocket. Jesus Christ, this thing is dusty. And I do think that it could be stored easily in the back pocket. Now you might be thinking, Brevin, wouldn't you be able to see it in most scenes? And to that I say, look at how loose Sogo's shirt is. They could easily cover up the belt, but it's still not going to be comfortable. Ride watches should be flat enough to be able to fit in the pocket, but Sogo has a bunch of them before the first big power-up, so those are not going to fit easily, and it definitely won't be comfy. 01. Now, initially I had put the 01 driver into the Bad Night at Denny's category, but since writing the script, I have actually gotten a 01 driver, and it's not as big as I thought it was. This could definitely fit in the back pocket, but it is definitely breaking. Progress keys, however, are pretty flat, so this could easily fit into Aruto's blazer pocket. Saber. Not even going into how the fuck that sword fits into that belt without breaking the laws of physics, the sword driver could fit into the back pocket, but that's not gonna come without some sharp bits poking you in the back. Similarly to the Progress keys, the Wonder Ride books are pretty flat, and those could easily fit into Tomo's pockets if his outfit for the week has pockets, because that man has some wacky-ass outfits, dressed like a pretentious runway show. Revice. This belt is peculiar because half of it is really flat and could easily fit into the pocket, but the other half is a spinning brick the size of the fist of your typical Yakuza protagonist, which means that it will snap off if you sit down on it wrong. And the vice stamps, I mean, those things are pretty big too. Those could not fit in Iki's pants. Do you see how tight those things are? They're about as tight as the fit of the vice stamps. Geats. From what I understand, the Desire Driver is pretty big, but it's also very flat, so technically it could be stored in the back pocket, but we actually know where at least two characters keep it, those being Ace and Neon. We see them in episode 3 running away from Neon's bodyguards, Hi Tom, and we see them pull the belts out of their bags, which, really, that's the smartest way to store the belts. But the raised muzzles are so uniquely shaped that they must be stored in the ass, right? Well, you would be right if the Desire Grand Prix uniforms didn't have several pockets in them, so take... And finally, Gotchard. The latest season as of the time I'm recording this video. The Gotchard driver is a chunky boy, or at least it looks like it in Hotaro's actor's tiny hands. Now, we commonly see Hotaro wearing his school outfit, which doesn't look like it has deep pockets. However, Hotaro is an alchemist, which means he could turn it into any shape and then change it back when he needs to. Is that actually what he does? Probably not, but I'm tired, so we're going with that. And there you have it, folks. The definitive list of where the lead Kamen Riders keep their belts. If you disagree with any of the placements on this list, please write out a comment, take a screenshot of that comment, print it out, roll up that paper, and shove it up your ass.